Endurance Junkie Podcast, episode 70. Hey Junkie, what's up? Thanks for joining me on a new episode of the Endurance Junkie Podcast, the show where I will be interviewing some of the fastest, smartest, and most inspiring people active in the endurance world today. Josh Amberger hails from Brisbane, Australia, and has been one of the most dominant athletes on the Ironman 70.3 circuit over the past couple of years, earning 8 wins and more than a dozen podium finishes. Having stepped up to the Ironman distance in 2017, Josh made his debut on the Big Island in style, coming out of the water in first place and leading the bike up until the start of the climb to Hawi. Josh, thanks for coming on the show here today. Now, for those of us who don't know you, can you start off by telling us a bit about yourself, your sporting background growing up, and how you ended up in triathlon?
Yeah, hi Peter, thanks for having me. So I'm 28 now, and I grew up in Brisbane in Australia, and have literally been doing sport my whole life. So it's not something that I really got into at one point in time. It's just been it literally has been my existence for as long as I can remember. When you're growing up in Australia, it's very common to be learning to swim from a very young age. So I think I was about 8 months old when I had my first swimming lesson. So I was able to progress in the pool really quickly through my childhood years, and was competing for Australian titles from when I was 9 or 10 years old. So I made the transition into triathlon when I was 14, just kind of out of boredom for swimming, for so long. I think when I was 11 or 12 years old, I was already doing, the 10, 11, 12 sessions a week, so the 2 times a day. So I was really happy when I found triathlon when I was 14 and settled with that.
Yeah, did somebody push you in that direction, or did you had some mates racing or something like that?
Yeah, definitely. Like a few people were influential, mostly like school teachers, who could obviously see my talent as a swimmer, but as well as a runner. And my swimming coach at the time, when I was 13 and 14, is John Rogers, who incidentally is Jan Frodeno's current swim coach, who is the one who really kind of actually pushed me away from swimming and more into triathlon and multisport.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, can you talk a bit about your progression then in triathlon? You said you competed for national titles when swimming. Was that the same in triathlon?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, when you're that young doing triathlon, 14 years old, you're just competing in like inter-school competitions. So it's pretty low key, but you obviously take it very seriously when you're that young. That was like the culmination of my year, to be competing at the Australian Schools Championships. So that progressed pretty quickly into like ITU junior elite, and I did my first trip to Europe for the 2006 World Champs in Lausanne as a junior. So. And then I raced 3 times as a junior elite, and then obviously this transitions to under 23s, and then I'm racing 70.3s by the time I'm 21. So yeah.
Yeah. So obviously coming from that swimming background definitely gave you a big engine. But yeah, how was your cycling and your running in those first couple of years?
I think I was always. I wouldn't say a gifted runner, but I was always a good runner simply because of my big engine from swimming. I could turn up to track races and cross country events and win or be at the top without any run training at all. It's just simply because I had the aerobic fitness. So it wouldn't really seem that way because running is obviously my weakest leg. But yeah, I don't really know at what point I stopped improving on my run, but we're slowly chipping away at it and starting to make some gains again. But definitely as a youngster, I was able to adopt cycling very well. It was just all about trying to get time on the bike, which is basically the same for anyone, really. You just need to put in the miles, and you'll see the benefits.
Yeah. Okay. Definitely a gifted athlete, and whatever you do, you make it to a higher level. When did you realize that you could, actually make it to the highest level and become a pro and start making a living out of it?
I don't know if there's a point where you actually realize this. I mean, of course, if you're competitive by nature, which I am, I've been racing. I think I did my first swimming race when I was 5 years old, so I've just grown up competing. So when you're competitive by nature, you're just always looking to improve at whatever you set your mind on. So for me, it's always been sport, and I just from when I was young, even racing ITU, the goal was always to just get better, and I've slowly gotten to this point now where I'm leading the race in world championships. I might not have won a world title yet, but I got pretty close in Penticton, racing Lionel in August, and he passed me with 15 minutes to go or something like this, and obviously led Kona for a little bit. So it's nice to be actually competitive on a world level at the moment.
Yeah. So how was your ITU career? Because you're 28, still pretty young, but you're already focusing on this long distance racing. Was that a deliberate choice, or was ITU just a little bit too fast?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I wouldn't really say that I did have an ITU career. It was obviously what I was exposed to in high performance triathlon at a young age, and I certainly raced. I raced well at ITU, but I wasn't. I wasn't winning too many races, I was always leading out of swim and off the bike and so forth. But yeah, just run speed has always been the difficult thing for me. So I transitioned to long course racing, actually to non-drafting Olympic distance first when the Hy-Vee 5150 series, when that became an event, switching over from the World Cup in Des Moines. So that was basically a good catalyst for me to say, okay, here's this non-drafting race with $1 million prize money. Let's actually try and put some money into the bank account this season and dedicate solely to non-drafting racing. And then that was, of course, the rather quick segue into 70.3 racing was, okay, I've done the season of Olympic distance non-draft, and now let's try 70.3. So that was literally the turning point. That was, I think, 2011. So yeah, I've just been racing halves ever since then, and obviously this year transitioning into Ironman.
Yeah, race to your strength. Just lead the swim, lead the bike, and try to hang on to the lead on the run as long as you can. You had a pretty solid 2017 season. Winning Ironman Cairns. How was that? Was that expected?
Definitely not expected, because 10 weeks earlier I did Ironman South Africa and absolutely got my ass handed to me. So that was my first exposure to obviously Ironman at its highest level at a regional championship. So to turn myself around 10 weeks later for Cairns and come up with a winning performance at the same level was actually really surprising, but it was perfect in a sense that I did get the ass kicking I needed in South Africa to say, okay, here's what we need to do for the next 10 weeks, how to refocus and actually try and race for the win at one of these events rather than 18th place or whatever I finished in South Africa. So yeah.
Yeah, and winning that Cairns race automatically qualified you for Kona. Did that somehow change your season?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've seen a lot of guys over the years become fixated on Kona, and I can see why now because it's such an amazing event. But I never wanted to be one of these athletes that kind of gets stuck in the holding pattern of just trying to qualify for Kona, and that's the means to the end. So I wanted to focus on first getting a good Ironman performance and proving that I could be competitive at Ironman rather than qualifying for Kona. So obviously, with the automatic qualification, I kind of gave myself the opportunity to compete there. I thought, yeah, okay, I've earned this. Why not go race? So it definitely wasn't the plan to be racing Kona this year, but it's an opportunity that I couldn't really turn down.
Yeah. And was ITU Long Distance World Champs, was that another A race, or was that something that you put in there as a preparation for Kona?
Yeah, that was definitely an A race. It's obviously somewhat of a B-level world championship compared to Kona. But every year the field at the ITU Long Distance race just gets deeper and deeper. So I wanted to bring my the best fitness I could to that race. Obviously with Kona in mind, they were 7 weeks apart. So at the start of the year, that was going to be the A race was Penticton rather than 70.3 Worlds, and then we just obviously extended once I qualified for Kona, we extended the goal to Kona as the A race.
Yeah, who are you working with as a coach?
Cameron Watt. So I've just started with him this year, and he's a tri-cyclo coach, and we basically live close to each other. So Sarah Crowley and myself and a few other development pros, we've kind of formed this squad in the Hills District in Brisbane. So it's been a really good change for us this year, and we're all kind of we've all hit a really good run of form from the change.
Yeah, it seems to work. Yeah, Sarah had a pretty amazing performance in Kona as well. Yeah, so you grabbed that silver medal at the ITU Long Distance World Champs in Penticton. So you must have gone into Kona with a bit of a, feeling good about yourself. What were your expectations going in? Were you planning on leading the swim, or was it just about, see if we can swim with that first group and try to hold on as much as we can? Or, what was your game plan?
I definitely did take a lot of confidence from Penticton. In terms of raw numbers, it was the best I've cycled ever. I think I eclipsed even my best Olympic distance powers with the 120k I did in Penticton. So in terms of my run fell apart a little bit in the last 10k, but my race in Penticton was pretty much flawless except for the last 10 kilometres of the run. So definitely I drew a lot of confidence from that. And we had a perfect preparation leading into Kona. So, of course, the idea for Kona was going to be to push the pace on the swim, not necessarily to go for swim records or anything like this, but I definitely wanted to change the dynamic of the race in Kona and, make the swim perhaps a bit more relevant in Kona, instead of handing the races over to the slow swimmers like it's been in the past, or just, guys settling for, they just want to be in the front pack and hope for, a top 10 finish or something like this. It definitely was to change the dynamic of the race in Kona.
Yeah, I read somewhere that your dream for next year would be that you could exit the water with the Harry Wiltshires and stuff like that, and then push the pace on the bike for a lot longer, and have the strong cyclists come and get you as late as possible. Yeah,
well, I actually I'd hope that kind of changes now, and the Harry Wiltshires are trying to swim with me. I actually can't remember ever being beaten out of the water by Harry Wiltshire. So I definitely would like to hope that I see some other athletes rise to the challenge and trying to improve the swim and make the swim more relevant in Ironman racing, because the plan certainly wasn't to isolate myself at the front of the race. The plan was to drag the guys that the Jan Fredinos and so forth for a faster swim. I was happy to have guys sit on my feet if that meant to have a few guys around me on the Queen K, but unfortunately that didn't really unfold that way. So yeah.
No, but what's it like leading the Ironman by yourself, riding on the Queen K?
Yeah, I mean it was like simply amazing. Hey, until the moment when I got caught by Sanders and I realised my race was probably was over. I had a smile ear to ear and just was loving being in the moment and being in that position.
How was the rest of your day?
So it must have been, to backpedal a little bit before I got caught, it must have been just before we hit the turn-off down to Quai High. I had a motorbike come up next to me with the time splits, and I actually know the man that does it every year. His name's Eric Gilson, and I've had a homestay with him before in Napa in California, and so he was pretty friendly to me out there, and showed me a few splits on the board, which didn't really mean nothing to me because I wanted to know where I could see Fredino's behind me and a few other players, but I wanted to know where Sanders, Keenler, and Worth were. So I yelled out and I said, where's Keenler, where's Sanders? And he just said, nowhere, they're nowhere. I was like, wow, okay, here we go. I'm leading the race. I've got a gap. Keenler is nowhere to be seen. Sanders is nowhere to be seen. I haven't heard about Worth. What do we do here? Do we just keep attacking? And the plan was to eventually have company. I'm not ignorant to the fact that I can't do this race. That I can do this race by myself off the front. That definitely wasn't the plan. And while I was probably the fittest I ever have been leading into the race, I knew that the first half of the ride is not where you want to be overextending yourself. So unfortunately, I just got kind of carried away in the moment and put too much emphasis on those time splits, because it turned out half an hour later that was when Sanders came absolutely storming past me, and when he caught me, it was in a really fierce crosswind section heading up to Harvey, and there was no sitting in at this point. So when he went past me, I think he said something like, "Come on, mate, let's go," or something like this, and then Seb comes past me and he recited some Metallica lyrics that we like to go through before every race. Seek and destroy, he said. And these guys went past me like absolutely flying, and I'm there 2 hours into the ride, having ridden solo for most of it, and actually really starting to hurt. And the mistake that cost me a decent result was actually trying to ride with them. So the next half an hour up to Harvey was absolutely was torturous. And I wish I kind of had the smarts to realize that at the time that trying to ride with these guys was not the right thing to do. So that's certainly the hardest part for me is to kind of take a back seat and say to myself, okay, now I'm not racing for the win. I'm racing for a top 5 or top 10 or whatever. That just wasn't an option. I just didn't want to lose these guys' wheels at any cost. So from that point onwards, after Harvey, my special needs wasn't there. I'm not sure what happened there, but I missed my electrolyte bottles and then got dropped on the descent heading down into Quai High. So from there, it was just literally trying to get through the rest of the ride. And eventually I got caught up by Langer and Freddie Van Leert and a few of these guys towards the end of the ride, and thought I could still have good run legs in me, which I did. I ran the first half marathon, pretty comfortably, but when I'd already gone through such a low point in the bike, it was kind of hard to redeem that last sort of half marathon, and that's really where it fell apart for me, was heading into the energy lab.
Yeah, you talked about missing your special needs back there at the Havi turn. We heard the same story from Frederick Van Leert, who was riding also in the lead pack at the time, and I think he called it quits after the bike ride. What happened there? Was that just a mistake by the organization?
Oh, it's hard to say. I was chatting to some athletes, what the protocol is heading through that aid station, and Heather Jackson told me when she rides through Harvey, she calls for her special needs when she's on the other side of the road. And I didn't do this. I kind of got there and I'd called my number out just before I got there, because it's my first time racing and I hadn't really didn't really know exactly where it was, and so it's either I've just called it out too late, or I didn't actually see where it was being handed to me. So it's unfair to put any blame on anyone there. And I didn't actually let it get to me. I thought, okay, we'll just get by on the Coke and the Gatorade on course. But I think I missed those crucial electrolytes that I needed, and I actually had to stop to pee like 4 times on the run. So I just wasn't retaining the fluid. So I definitely think that it did have some impact, but by that point I'd already burnt too many matches. So I'm not hung up too much on it.
So you obviously have had a couple of lessons learned for next time.
Oh yeah. I went into this race knowing, everyone tells me, it's so hard the race there is so hard to master. It's unlike anything else. And, I'm there in past years watching guys like Sebastian gets 4th on his first go. He's obviously a friend of mine, so I take notice of that. And, Patrick Langer last year gets 3rd on his first go. Not to mention the countless performances of other guys who've nailed it, and women who've done well on their first go. So my expectation was to have a good result on my first go as well. So it's disappointing, of course, to not get that result. But yeah, at the same time, the mistakes that I made and things that went wrong are absolutely valuable lessons in heading into the race in future years.
Yeah, we got a question coming in from one of our listeners, Vesa Huskrain, and I hope I pronounced his name right. He wanted to know what your taper was like leading into Kona. Can you talk a bit about that?
So this year, obviously starting with Cam Watt, who's mentored by Brett Sutton. Now, our taper is not too extensive. Cam talks about tapering as being a dirty word in endurance triathlon, and it's more about just going into the race rested. So we pretty much trained as normal until the Sunday before, and then it was a short drop down. So it was like 6 days before the race. 5 days before the race, we were still right. We went and did 4 hours easy, just super easy. And then, it was like a real small drop down before the race. So not necessarily tapered, but definitely rested. Although I think, we still have work to do to until I really feel like I'm rested into an Ironman. So that's something that my coach and I will be, trying on the next attempts, is trying to get that, balance that formula a bit.
Yeah, figure out what works best. Well, what's the plan for the rest of the year and 2018 season? Do you have that figured out already? Yeah,
so I've got 2 more races left for 2017, and that's the Noosa Triathlon next weekend in Noosa, Australia. It's a famous race.
Short and fast.
I think it's certainly. So it's actually Olympic distance, and it's a really fun event each year because it's talked up to be a challenge between the Ironman guys and the ITU guys every year, and it's certainly a matchup that everyone looks forward to. But it's very very seldom that someone who does Ironman comes out on top in Noosa. So I'll just be going in there for a bit of fun and trying to race the way I normally do, and punish the guys on the swim and the bike, and see what materializes on the run. And then 2 weeks after that, we've got the Island House Invitational, obviously in the Bahamas. It's a well-known race now, and one that's known to get the best guys in the sport together from short and long distance as well. So that'll be my first time racing that, and then it will be time to go on holidays for a few weeks, I think, because it's certainly been a long year racing from January in Dubai 70.3 all the way to Kona in October, and then some events in November. So I haven't really thought too much about what's going to happen next year. I've obviously given some thought to what Ironmans. I'd love to keep focusing on the regional championship races, and I normally like to kick my season off with a 70.3 in Dubai in the last week of January. So I'll put together some more thoughts about that, and probably have some announcements earlier in the year, I guess.
Okay, well, I'll keep an eye out for that. You've been in the sport for a couple of years. What do you see as your biggest achievement so far, and what's your biggest disappointment?
I don't think there's any really one race where it's my biggest achievement. I mean, I'm probably sounding hard on myself here, but I certainly don't think I've achieved all that I can potentially achieve in the sport. But definitely winning my first Ironman this year, Ironman Cairns was quite special, and then having such a hard race against Lionel in Penticton as well, and coming up second in a world title, that was also pretty special. So, but I've also had some really hard fought wins over the years that have meant something to me. Like, for instance, Xiamen 70.3 in November in China last year. I went toe to toe with Tim Don, and I think it was actually looking so certain that Tim was going to run me down and win the race, but it actually ended up going the other way, and I held strong, and he blew up, and that was just a special day because it was just I thrive in these really competitive races where we can go toe to toe and come out. So that was a fantastic day. But I guess in terms of low points, I always think I always come out of some races getting some positives, but I think 70.3 Worlds last year in Mooloolaba was definitely a real low point. Coming 11th, not so much a result, but just because of the lack of respect for the rules from athletes in the draft zone on the course last year in Mooloolaba. I definitely think, when I see guys not caring at all about respect for the rules, that's a low point for me, rather than how much that affects the outcome of the race. So, let's keep it clean, boys, and hopefully we can still have a bright future in triathlon.
Is that a problem that you only see in these big championship races, or do you see them in regional 7.3s as well?
I think most competitors are honest, and everyone wants to do the right thing. It's just if you're in a championship race and someone sees another guy drafting, especially if that guy's a better athlete than him, they're going to do it no matter what. So first and foremost, there's too many guys in the fields. I think that people talk about wanting to get equal spots for men and women, which I totally agree with. But I think the answer, you can kill two birds with one stone by lowering the the athlete count in the men's field down to 35 or something like this, rather than 50 and the 55 that it ends up being. It's just too many guys, and I suffer from this every year, from being a fast swimmer and then being caught by a pack on the bike. So I'd love to see smaller, more consolidated fields that kind of rewards, the rounded athlete more than the athlete that can take advantage of big packs. So, I know I'm definitely not the only guy that thinks this, but I don't honestly see it changing, but I would definitely like to see it. Yeah,
it's definitely depending on the athlete. The bikers will probably see it a bit differently. Thanks for your time, Josh. This has been very interesting. How can people get in touch with you if they want to?
You can get in touch with me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, like everyone else, and then I also take emails through my website. There's a contact form where you can contact me, and that goes straight to my email. So I'll be guaranteed to see anything that comes through there.
No, definitely put the links to the social networks on the show notes page. Feel free to give some love to your sponsors or partners.
All right. Here we go. I love my Felt IA. It's a fantastic bike, and it's got I got those new Zip 858s for Kona, and I'm really enjoying riding on those. So I'm sure they'll be hitting the stores soon. Thanks also to a lot of my other sponsors: Hoka, One, Baxter's, Celebrations, Enduro Sports Nutrition, Fuel Belt, Waddy Inc. for my sick race suits that I'm sure everyone notices, and Lake Cycling, Speed Play. And I think that just about covers it. So
that's a bunch. Yeah, I'll now put those links up on the page as well on the website. Anything else you want to plug?
Not really. I hope that everyone enjoyed the interview, and thanks for the opportunity.
All right. Well, one last to finish off. We finished the interview, and you step outside the house there, and you find a lottery ticket that ends up winning $10 million. What do you do?
I don't know. I'd like to say I wouldn't want to tell anyone, because then it becomes a problem, and everyone wants some. But I'm not overly materialistic. I wouldn't go buy a car or any of this dumb stuff. I'd like to think that I would share this money with whoever needs it more than me, but also keep a little bit just to make life a bit easier, and I don't know, probably just not work for the rest of my life and enjoy life.
Just keep racing triathlons without the pressure of podium.
I literally probably would, because like I said before, I'm just competitive. I love racing and I love sport. So I think all the time it's like, okay, if I was no longer a pro, what would I keep doing? Would I keep riding, keep running, keep swimming? I honestly think I'd keep doing all of it, because it's really my nature.
All right, thanks for your time, Josh. It's been a pleasure.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Peter.
All right, Junkies, thanks for listening to this episode with Josh Amberger. I hope you enjoyed that one. Now, as usual, if you like these little interviews and don't want to miss any future episodes, head over to iTunes or Stitcher and subscribe to the show. And if you're at home sitting behind your desktop or on your laptop, head over to the website, junkiepodcast.com, for all the archives, show notes pages, and use that contact section on the bottom to send me your guest wish list. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you'll join me next time. Cheers.